Hey, good morning. It is Thursday, October 13th, going on 6:45 in the morning on the East Coast of the United States. Still 2022. Golly, sometimes I think about it and how when I was in high school in the 1960s and we read George Orwell's book 1984, and we could hardly conceive of, oh my goodness, 15, 16, maybe 20 years from where we were then. Oh, it was unimaginable. Now I think, golly, I lived most of my life in the 1900s, and my gosh, it's 2022. Gosh, time. Oh, well, look, let me get my coffee ready here, okay? I need to fill up some more water in my coffee machine here. And in my area, we have hard water. Got a lot of minerals in the water. And I always use filtered water. I tell you what, unless you have super soft water, use filtered water and stuff like your coffee machines where things heat up and cool down and there's a lot of evaporation, because that will prevent buildup of minerals and just, yuck stuff in there. Okay, let me get a cup of coffee started, and I want to show you an example of thinking about how time passes. Let me say this before I fix the coffee. I'll say this so I don't forget. So one of the things we've been talking about in my third grade class that I've been subbing for at St. John's School is we're reading a story called The Castle on Hester Street, which is about a family of Jewish immigrants who came over. It's not a true story, but it's historical fiction. So they came over here between the 1880s and the 1920s, which was a very big time for immigration. You probably heard of Ellis Island, stuff like that. If you haven't, Google it. Anyhow, so we're talking about the changes over time, the things that get passed along, the importance of knowing about your own roots. And so I brought in a picture of my mother when she was 16 years old in 1928. And today, I'll show you now, before I make the coffee, I have this, what I think is an awful picture, but it's from my mother's junior high in January 1926. So, it's this one. That's my mother. Obviously, nobody at home, well, she's not the only one. They weren't doing real well with those ties around their necks, are they? I think they're called midi blouses. Sort of a sailor style, I think it was. And look at those hairstyles. Anyway, so, and this junior high was on the Lower East Side of New York. So, those were all going to be poor immigrant children. Likely, I think all of them would probably be Jewish. Oh, you know what? Did she write the names? My gosh. Yes, she wrote the last name. Okay, so Zeidman, Zusman, Epstein, Hohenbach, Goldfarb, Bloom, Werner. Yeah, there's all kinds of Jewish names. Looks like there may be a couple of Italian names thrown in here. I don't know, I'd have to look more closely at this and read, but yeah, Markowitz, Cernick, Matz, Davidson, Feld, Watkins, that doesn't sound Jewish, but could be. When people came over to Ellis Island, sometimes because the people working on Ellis Island couldn't understand what the immigrant was saying, because the immigrant likely did not speak English. The name got written down to the closest approximation, let me put this over here, that the worker could figure out. Anyway, you know what? Let me make this coffee. Let me get some milk here. Okay. So these days, it has been my experience that, and my observation, that because we have such a mobile society, even though we've got, you know, the ability to make video phone calls and stuff like that, even though we have airplanes to travel much more quickly than, say, in a ship over the ocean or on a stagecoach, or even in a car, children are not often exposed in a meaningful way to their grandparents and other relatives who are older. And because of that, I think I'll make the pumpkin spice cake. Because of that, they lose a sense of meaning of the past and a sense of what it means for them and also for their culture, their society. You know, we used to live more so in neighborhoods with people from similar backgrounds. Like the neighborhood I grew up in was primarily Jewish in the Bronx in New York City, with a few Italians thrown in there. And these days, of course, usually if there are ethnic neighborhoods, there'll be, again, immigrants, you know, maybe people from India or Eastern Europe or, you know, Mexico, something like that. So other than that, so many Americans have just been scattered all over the country that a lot of kids, you know, they may not see their grandparents but once a year or something, not enough to build that meaningful, doing things together relationship, that face-to-face relationship. So I think that they lose a sense, like I said, of the history and the meaning of things. Well, so since we're reading this story, which happened to just come up, it was, you know, I'm following their reader, and that was the next story while I'm substituting, about the Lower East Side of New York and the Jewish immigrants that came from Russia. You know, why do people immigrate? You know, what are they coming here for? So on and so forth. You know, and what type of people, what type of lives do they lead? Things like that when they come to a new country. Well, anyway, so I have been giving them some of my personal history because a lot of them may not have grandparents that are nearby, but I'm certainly, well, I'm probably more like their great-grandparents in age. Let me get a spoon here. But because we've formed a relationship over the time that I've been subbing for them, you know, what I'm telling them, these things are going to stick with them. You know, like the time that my mother was talking in class in elementary school, and she shouldn't have been talking, and they filled her mouth with fish glue and put tape across it. Yeah, discipline used to be different back then. And yes, fish glue was made out of fish. Anyway, so, you know, this is giving them a feel for a time other than just their own time. We talked, for example, about words in the English language that come from Yiddish. Oh, did you know? Have you ever heard of a computer glitch? Glitch is a word that comes from Yiddish. Did you know that bagel, originally a Yiddish word? Yes, what is it? You've probably eaten a bagel. That's what it is. Anyhow, so, you know, I feel as though I am contributing in a way, you know, other than just learning to read words and spell and vocabulary words. I'm also helping to transmit the importance of being part of a group, part of a country, part of a community, which is also an important part of education. and something that might not be as readily available to kids today because relatives, especially older ones, are scattered just all over, and they may not get to see them very often. Anyway, I can't remember if there was something I was going to talk about with the coffee, but you know what? I'm going to drink it. I hope you have a great day, and I hope that if you are a grandparent or a great-grandparent, that you are sharing with your grandchildren about your life and the times that you grew up in and stuff like that. I think it's really important to know about. Anyway, and there is our lesson for today on the importance of transmitting culture. Anyhow, have a great day.